watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 90, XPages Google Hangout. Hanging out with your DDE out. Okay, this is a very different show to me. This is about a Google Hangout, and it's really a replay of a Google Hangout that took place yesterday. So Chris Toohey, who's got a great website at dominoguru.com and is an IBM champion, all that good stuff. He's got youtube.com/Chris Toohey where he's done videos himself. Throughout history, and then I actually reused one of those videos, I think back in show 81, because I thought it was pretty important. It was actually working on solved a problem that I was having at the time. So what he did yesterday is he got a couple guys together, himself, Russ, Maher, Paul Calhoun, and me, for this Google Hangout, which is like basically a video web chat kind of thing, podcast, kind of mashup of all these things. And we just talked about XPages and learning XPages and getting started and I don't know, some other weird things that you're going to have to see. So I'm going to run this Hangout in this NotesIn9 show, which runs for about an hour. A couple people wanted more of an easily downloadable version of it, so I'm doing this to help make that downloadable and also to help me get to that 99 thing, which I'm really way behind in getting to. So now Chris is going to do more of these, it sounds like, maybe with different people. And so you do want to keep an eye on his YouTube site, on his website, for more XPages goodness coming off there. I have actually, even before this, I've been considering doing something like this myself, maybe a little different, more like a live NotesIn9 kind of thing. So I might play with this technology myself as well. But if Chris is going to just run with it, then maybe I won't, because he'll probably do a better job than I will. So anyway, with all that crap being said, here is the replay of the Hangout, and I hope you enjoy it.
Look at a black screen.
I told you. No one told me about video. I am not prepared for video.
No one told anyone about anything. I just literally thought it would be a great idea to get everyone together to talk about some pretty cool topics. The topic that we're talking about today is IBM XPages education and resources. And I pulled probably the best people in our greater community to talk about those topics, as they not only do a lot of the education and resources that we'll talk to as the go-to resources, but they know their stuff. Quite frankly, they're on top of the ball a lot more than I am. So without further ado, we'll introduce people to our panel today. Dave, take it away.
Hi, well, I'm Dave Leedy from NotesIn9, and I've been doing XPages since 2009, and I'm a customer, not a business partner.
Russ?
Sure. My name is Russell Maher. I'm actually a customer and a business partner. I've been doing XPages just like David has been since 2008, 2009. I'm one half of a pair of people that delivers the Views XPages boot camps that we've been delivering around the world for the last couple of years.
And the Darth Vader amongst us.
Broadcasting from the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
Look.
Non-camera'd Paul Calhoun.
I'm in my office. It's just the lights are off here. That's all I'm saying. So, again, Paul Calhoun with NetNote Solutions Unlimited. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here. I've been doing Notes and Domino since release 2. I've been doing XPages since the first beta. I do get to travel the world with Mr. Maher, delivering the XPages Bootcamp and Advanced Bootcamp. Also have developed a lot of TLCCs, Java, and XPages training.
Awesome. I'm just getting the word out. We have 6 viewers. Hello, viewers. We have
6 viewers.
Hopefully, once I tweet this and post it on Facebook and LinkedIn, we'll have 7. Progress.
That's because we're all logged in from our phones too. So,
You know, I actually, before we get into this topic, for those of you curious, I actually connected in through Google on my iPhone and was able to run a two-camera display. So eventually, when we do like hardware and stuff like that, we can talk and actually show live. You know, hey, look, we've got this. So there you go.
can you jump to a screen?
Yeah,
Can you
if I
share a
select,
screen?
like even as you're talking, I can click and make it focus on Russ. Or if I want to, you know, just have dead air, I could just go right to it.
No, I mean a desktop screen.
Oh yeah,
Can you?
yeah. I could share this out. I would share mine, but it's rather chaotic right now.
Okay.
With a
talk
lot
about
of
that.
chat windows of people saying, "Where's the Hangout?" So, there's that. Now, oh look, I tweeted it out, and we got 8 viewers. So there you go.
Hey.
Yes.
What's the link? I don't see it under youtube.com/Chris Toohey. I just see. I thought I was going to live stream there.
There's this option, and it's this, like, you're jumping through hoops in order to get to the actual links. If you go to embed, then you can find the link when you're running one of these. But there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff with Google Hangouts. Like, if you take a look at my screen right now, you can see I've got this, you know, this pseudo official looking. It hides my double chin. Really nice little, you know, like official banner with my name, site, and Twitter handle. So there's you know, there's some really cool stuff that we can do in here.
Okay. Cool.
But I digress. On to the topics that we want to cover. Wanted to talk about the best resources for new XPages developers. Now, these are developers that for years have been developing with IBM Lotus Notes Domino. They've developed countless Lotus Notes client apps. They've maybe even taken those Lotus Notes client applications to the web browser or even mobile devices. But now XPages comes along, touted as this amazing technology. And there's a discussion to be had on why go XPages. And maybe that'll be another topic for another time. But if you've already made the decision that it's improving your application development through the IBM Notes and Domino brand with XPages, where do you get started?
I'll chime in. Basically, I would tell everybody to go to NotesIn9.com and start working your way through Mr. Leedy's videos. I mean, because, you know, in the end, when people kind of decide to make this leap, I just saw somebody yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. They just decided to start a blog post or a blog, and their very first post basically said something to the effect of, "Hey, you know, I'm kind of late to the game to XPages, but all the named people in the XPage universe are all doing this high-flying stuff that I don't really know how to do, and you know, there's not really anybody out there kind of making a pitch for us beginners, the newbies, kind of a thing." And so, I mean, there are a lot of people that are just now coming to XPages, and I personally have found, like, you know, NotesIn9 to be the place that we traditionally tell people in the boot camps, hey, if you're just getting off, you know, getting started going on this thing, go take a look at that website, because there's a lot of stuff there that is going to get you going very quickly. So that's kind of where I would point people to.
And I appreciate that, and that is a problem with when the people went into blogs and stuff like that. The technical articles elevated very quickly. So one of the goals of NotesIn9 is to always bridge that gap and be accessible to the new people coming on, because we have new people coming on all the time. As you said, I just put out a show today that generated from an email I got from a user who was new to XPages and just had a question on scope variables and stuff like that. So yeah, there is a lot of new people coming in every day. Other good resources are Matt White has a site, xpages101.net, which is similar to NotesIn9 but better videos. But you have to pay for that, which is reasonable. And then TLCC, TLCC.com, Howard and Paul's company, they do these like online learning resources that you do inside Domino Designer, and they're really well done. They've got XPages stuff. They've got Java now, so you can go at your own pace. There's a forum. I think they even do some on-site training and stuff too. So those are really well done as well.
Yeah, and the IBM Press books are out there. I mean, when you're talking about training, unfortunately, it comes down to all these Domino developers that are out there, and whether or not they've got a quote unquote budget, and whether or not they have resources where they can purchase training resources, or if they're just kind of having to learn it on their own. And if you don't have a budget, if you're just trying to kind of hack your way through it, then the NotesIn9 videos are a great place to start. And then the IBM Press books, which are the Mastering XPages, the Portable Command Guide, and the Extension Library, kind of in that order, to go through those particular books. Those are a low-cost initiative. And then possibly exploring some of the additional, kind of fee-based XPages training that's out there. Definitely Matt White's videos, the TLCC training. IBM has official classroom courseware that's out there. Definitely having the ability to attend some of the lugs in your particular region. If you can go to a lug, I know that David and Russ and myself participate in the regional lugs as best we can. Typically, those are free events where there is content delivered, up to and in the same par you're going to get at going to Lotus Fair.
Said the disembodied voice.
Right.
You make absolutely perfect across the board. Everyone's made solid points. The one thing that stuck out to me as a content creator, and as awkward as for me to say this, I'm often put into this group of the content creators within our community, and I'm a hack at best, but I do find, me personally, I always try to, I wind up holding back on the stuff that I think is really simple, and I go for those knock it out of the park big thought blog post or articles. And Russ, to your point, I think we might be doing new XPage developers a disservice by not keeping it, by not walking that line between here's something really amazing. Here's how you role manage teams, and you can write your own CRUD API to implement MVC architecture in your XPages development. Oh, and here's how you use asset key so you can hit Alt G to get to the a particular field. So I think a lot of that, if we could better our community and better the greater Lotus Online or IBM Notes and Domino online community by walking that line and saying, hey, here's some amazing stuff that really helps establish our subject matter expertise, but also here's the stuff that you need to get started. Here's that good base layer where all this is built upon. And I myself, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I myself find that I do ignore a lot of that. And where I think I've published an article and I put a lot of work into it, and the demo is just, I think it's awesome and it's great, and 6 months later I look back and I cringe. But at that moment, I think it's the greatest thing I've ever written. And I'll get a comment, oh, so that's how you figured out where to put the CSS. And it has nothing to do with the topic at hand. But it's. I'm sorry, David. You were going to say?
Well, I mean, you're missing the audience. The audience isn't there yet. It's good to have advanced stuff, and advanced stuff is needed. But this is still relatively new technology in a relatively niche market, unfortunately. Though I believe it's growing. But there's so many people who do this as a 9-to-5 job, so they don't live this like we do. They don't have help. They don't. They can't find the resources, but maybe they know your blog. Okay, so I like to tell contributors to NotesIn9, if someone's covered a topic, fine, cover it again. It's at least a different voice you're bringing to it. If it's too easy, well, guess what? It probably took you 5 to 10 minutes to figure it out. Do something on it anyway, because it'll save somebody else maybe 20 to 30 minutes to figure it out as well too. If it's been covered before, okay, cover it again. It's only going to help someone searching for it later in the future. So you have to be able to do, I think, low-hanging fruit to get out there, because that's what people can reach. Not everybody can reach the top of the tree.
Right. And the fact is that not everybody needs to reach the top of the tree either. You know, we have a lot of people out there that are, and we see it all the time. Paul and I, you know, we literally have traveled the globe talking to all kinds of different people, and it's pretty fascinating, the diversity of needs and states of play that people are in various situations. We run into people who work for defense contractors. You know, they can't install any software on their laptops, period, no matter what it is. So, you know, they're not behind the 8 ball, but they have to go at the pace that they're allowed to go with their technology. Over in Europe, we find generally people are pretty much out there in terms of pushing the envelope. But, you know, in the end, you don't need to be a Java expert to do your first basic Notes or, you know, XPage application. Does it help? Yeah, it might. I had a really interesting experience 2 weeks ago. I started what would turn out to be like a very basic, straightforward XPages application. Probably the first one I've done, just normal XPage stuff. Probably first one I've done in maybe a year. I mean, I wasn't going to do anything fancy at all. 2 forms, a couple views, and, you know, I didn't use any Java. And the thing about it is, when you go back to that beginning stuff, it's almost a delight. You know, and it's really cool because you can see all, you know, you can get a lot of stuff done very, very quickly. But and that's a lot of times what people want. You know, people are not entering into this trying to figure out, like David said, about, you know, I sure hope I get to learn a managed bean as my first XPage task. You know, what they want to do is, hey, I want to fill out a form, save it, edit it, make sure it's secure, and view it. There you go. And the low-hanging fruit stuff is kind of handy. I try, you know, it's funny because I started a blog 2 years ago because, and I probably shouldn't rope Paul into this, but every year we would say, "You going to start a blog?" "No, I'm not going to start a blog." And pretty much the conversation was, "I don't have anything to say. You know, everybody else is saying everything." Well, I started xpagetips.com because I thought, well, what the heck? As I'm doing these little things, I find these little things that nobody thinks of that I just should just share. So the resources are out there, but I think, you know, Chris, you make a good point that we sort of avoid catering to the beginners, and we probably could do a better job at that. Stack Overflow is a great place to go, by the way, if you have questions.
That's another amazing resource. To echo what you're saying, Tim Trecconi nor any of you guys on the panel are going to read an article that I write. And when you reach, and I'm not saying me, but I'm saying, you know, a content creator that's going to shoot for that 1% of the audience, that 1% is too busy writing the other 1% articles. You're creating the other 1% content. So your readership drops because, and you're not getting that message out, and people think, wow, this is really painful. I've got to learn Java in order to, and I've attended a lot of the people on this panel, the content that they put out, and they've said, well, you don't need to know Java to get into XPages development. It's going to help. It's going to allow you to extend what's already there. And I think that there's certainly trepidation for someone who's been developing Notes applications in a silo in a small organization for 15 years, who is then told, oh yeah, all that stuff that you've learned, throw that away because this is the new hotness.
Yeah, well, I think the new hotness, and we addressed this when we talked to developers in the boot camps, and pretty much anytime I have an audience to talk about XPages is I have to remind people all the time that the number one success factor, application success factor is consistent, maintainable working code. And and when you explain that to people, sometimes a light bulb goes off. They go, oh yeah. I mean, it's not all necessarily about adding the bells and the whistles and the gadgets and the drag and drop. It's about working, maintainable, consistent code. And that's, in my opinion, has always been the number one success factor. If you look at any of the applications that I develop, I'll be the first to admit they're not flashy, but every time you press a button, it does what that button's supposed to do every time. and when Domino developers are coming to XPages, it's very easy to get caught up in the, oh, well, I need to look at this framework and I need to look at that framework, and should I be doing this versus doing that? When really what they should be concentrating on, the analogy I use all the time is the tools in their toolbox. They need to master the existing tools in their toolbox to create functional, working, consistent applications. And then, once they have that foundation, that's when you have the additional time to start, putting, a glossy coat of paint on the top of them. Jazzing up your UI a little bit, swapping out, a standard input text for a validation input text from the extension library. But so many developers are coming to the XPages arena and trying to jump in the deep end of the pool, and they're just drowning, versus making sure that they've got those basic strokes down first. So I've always been a proponent, will continue to be a proponent of start small, get something out there that's working consistently, follow some of those best practices and foundations, and then you get to start playing with quote unquote the cool stuff.
Well said. Well said. I think that's well, I can't say any better than that, so I'll leave it at that. And it's really eerie not being able to see your face, or at least throw a
It's like the voice from above. It just works.
That's right.
God?
Me being
I think another thing that you have to keep in mind when people learn XPages, especially in the corporate world, is there are very few teams out there. A lot of XPagers or silos. They're on their own. There aren't that many companies out there, at least that I know of, with 10 Domino developers and stuff like that. So they don't have a lot of people to bounce ideas off each other and stuff like that, which I mentioned in the show today. Is that's one thing you can do when you go to lugs. Meet people. Going to a lug or a Lotusphere, the people are as important as the sessions, if not more, to make a contact, find somebody maybe with similar interests, become friends with them and stuff like that, and maybe you can have some give and take, long after the lug has ended.
Yeah, it's about creating the community, I think, is what David just said. Is one of the things that I think Notes and Domino does better than any other technology out there is the community ecosystem. And you find those people, and then they know people, and you get introduced to other people, and and then the answers are out there.
Well, what about people that are new to the platform? And we see this a lot with people that find a job. They're and it happens to be in a note shop. I hate to say this, but I don't know of any organizations that are saying, we're getting rid of Exchange and SharePoint and we're bringing in Notes and Domino. A lot of the situations that people find themselves in where they are brand new to IBM Notes and Domino as a platform is when they found a note shop and they get in. So for someone brand new to IBM Notes and Domino as a platform, or the entire, I would call it the Lotus portfolio, but you know what I mean, where should they start?
I think it depends where you come from. I've been painfully aware over the last 12 months that my age has given me a unique perspective. We've got people coming into our community who are crack developers that are 20, 25, gosh, yeah, okay, I'm not going to go 30, 20, 25 years younger than me, that basically come in, they know code, they know Java, they might know C or C++, they know web applications, they know PHP, they know all this kind of stuff, but what they don't know is they don't know how Domino works. Now, that kind of person, I would tell them, hey, you need to find a resource that's even pre XPages, and you can go to look at IBM's websites, heck, go to Stack Overflow and submit a question, just to get a general feel for, hey, how does this beast work? I mean, what is the underlying architecture? How does replication work? Most importantly, how does the security model work? So basically, learn the data architecture, the data security mechanisms that are inside there, if that's where you're coming from. I had the opportunity last year, I guess, well, almost 2 years ago now, to train up a Java developer to take over my position, and it wasn't that hard. The guy was sharp as a tack, and I was able to focus in on the Domino stuff, not so much the Java stuff. He picked it up after a couple months, and he was allowed to ask me questions for several months after that, and I think I got 3 questions over like the next 9 months after I was gone. So if you're starting from that point, I think just learning the basic undergirding without even thinking about XPages is the place to start. And if you come from a JSF environment, then XPages is going to be pretty easy. But I don't know, maybe somebody else could comment on somebody not coming from that background.
Well, if you're just coming from nothing, you need to have resources to learn. There's an intern. There's a little business partnership in the UK somewhere who have been taking on these interns who just come out of college or secondary school, whatever they call it over there, with just basic computer web design knowledge, and they've been making a couple XPage developers. One did a show for NotesIn9 after 6 weeks of working with XPages, never hearing it before. I was pretty impressed. I liked it. Now that person's moved on to another job, but now they've got a new intern that they're bringing up to speed and stuff too. So it is doable. We've got a lot of materials out now. We've got a lot of common languages with HTML, CSS. So the concepts are not as specific as they once were. Lotus script and that formulas and everything.
I think David, as you were talking, I was thinking about this. This is another piece of advice I would give to people that are sort of new to Domino or just find themselves in a Domino shop. The one thing I would say is, don't despair. I mean, because there is sort of this feeling out there that, hey, Domino, XPages, the ground we're standing on is not exactly firm, in terms of a future career kind of a thing. Well, the good news is all of the things, the techniques, the skills, the technologies that you would learn to make XPage applications, every last one of those is directly attributable or applicable to any other future technology that's coming down the pike. I mean, so, IBM's pretty much said, hey, XPages is what we're going to be using to build inside of our other, connections products and so forth. It remains to be seen exactly how that all is going to work, but they're not going to ditch it. And even if you find yourself all of a sudden, you're not in that position anymore at a Domino shop, maybe you're going off to another, some sort of a Java shop. Well, what? Once you know JSF and you sort of understand how that thing works, it doesn't take very much to really to move into that other thing, and you're not going to lose anything. So I think that's one really, really cool thing, is that you get to learn a lot of different technologies. Generally, like David said, you're probably either part of a very small team or you're kind of the lone gun, which means that pretty much you get to do different things every day. One day it might be some JavaScript, the next day it might be CSS, the next day it might be HTML, the next day it might be Domino security, next day it might be generating emails on the fly. I mean, there's just so many different things that you get to do that you do gain a lot of very, very usable experience that you can take to any other position or specifically, apply to your own internal projects.
I do find that knowledge of the platform often trumps knowledge of XPages if I'm developing an XPages app, because I'll qualify that. if I'm looking for a way to, I've got to make sure that within this XPages workflow application, I kick off an email message. Well, how do I do that within, the confines of XPages? And it's not a perfect example, but there are multiple scenarios where knowing the platform, knowing the capabilities of the platform, knowing the security, knowing the messaging capabilities, addresses functional gaps, where as a seasoned Notes and Domino developer, they don't have that functionality in XPages. But knowing that I can always punt to the platform, but just use XPages as the UI, the entry point into the platform, often addresses that gap. You can see that with compute with form XPages. If someone's not familiar with using converters on hidden fields to set authors and readers fields properly, or using the ACL entry on the data source to set the ACL properly, set readers and authors against that, then they can always say, oh, well, I'll just put a readers or an authors field on the form and then compute when I save it.
Can you repeat that again?
But it's knowing the platform and knowing that base level that you can build upon it. And I think that new developers, to echo everyone's point, new developers to the platform really need to start at the platform layer. And I don't think anyone, when's the last time you really saw an article about using what we refer to now as traditional, because legacy got people shot.
Wounded at least.
Wounded. They called it legacy until someone took an arrow to the knee.
I like the term classic because a Coke classic can work for them.
Yeah, but having actually imbibed new Coke.
Okay, fair enough. Good point.
Yeah. You don't want people to make those comparisons. You don't want to do your competitor's job for you. But it's understanding that platform that will help you build that. And what Paul was saying, it goes back to that foundation. Learn to doggy paddle before you, do whatever. I'm not a swimmer. I'm more of a buoy. So. Now, that being said, not the buoy comment, but to learn your platform and learn that. Let's talk about these really well-versed XPages developers. They've been at it since 2008. They were chomping at the bit to write the very first articles, or maybe they even came to the platform during this huge paradigm shift into XPages development, and all they know is XPages development. They understand the platform, but they are seasoned XPages developers. They've been cranking out apps. They've got that well-versed history of working with the platform. What resources do you guys recommend to help bring up their game even more?
I'm not one of those guys, so I wouldn't know. That's, I guess, contract with Tim Triconi or Jeremy Hodge.
On this panel, it's going to be me. Okay.
Well, I think once you've got if you've got your Domino chops down and you've got your XPages chops down, then I think the next level where the Tims and the Jeremys and the folks that have taken it to the next level, what they've done is start really pulling apart the JSP and JSF API. We say in the XPages Bootcamp that at the end of the day, all XPages applications run as Java servlets in a servlet engine. And that just goes over the top of everybody's head. They're like, oh, okay, it's a servlet. But they don't know what a servlet is. They don't know much about the request response architecture. They don't know about the 7 phases of execution. So I think that's where some developers have really started taking it to the next level, is they've said, okay, well, this is the architecture that we're sitting on top of. And if I can go in and I can start peeling those layers back, what are the 7 execution phases? Which ones are actually implemented in XPages? Are we using the JSF 1.1 or the JSF 2.0 or a mix of those two things? And it turns out we're kind of using a combination of those things. And then digging into that API, then what that allows them is to just add additional granularity. I know personally, I've dived deeper into an API when I've had a problem to solve, and I think if you talk to Tim and Jeremy and those folks, that's why they kind of investigated that further. Is they hit what I call the development wall, and they had a development issue that they were trying to address. And they couldn't do it with the tools in the toolbox. They had to kind of go to that next level, and start looking under the covers there to see the magic that the architecture brings. And there's a career there. I mean, looking at JSF and JSP, like Russ was saying, is if you start really pulling that stuff apart and understanding how that stuff works, that's stuff that you can take to any J2EE platform. You can go to WebSphere, you can go to Glassfish, start looking at the portal stuff. I mean, it just really opens up a lot of opportunity.
I'll take an alternate tactic here. Because I never considered myself a developer. I'm more of a I liken Jeremy and Tim to scalpels, and I'm more of a hammer. I'll get it, but it's not going to be this code poet approach. I tend to look at alternate sources of inspiration. Taking a look at the gaming industry and how they're using various psychological tactics to bring their platforms up to the masses. I look at that from a UI and user experience arena or tactic or whatever. Where I'll take a look at a situation or a project that I'm working on and say, okay, this is great, but how can we better incentivize the user? And whether that's bringing in gamification tactics, spending a lot of time working on the UI, and then looking at external UIs, looking outside of the IBM One UI v2.1 or upcoming 3 or whatever. UIs and saying, well, how's everyone else doing? And picking sort of the best of all worlds and looking and saying, well, if the users are going home and they're spending hours on Facebook and they're used to a news feed that cascades as you scroll to the bottom and it constantly appends, then why do I care about pagination in my UI? Shouldn't I have the top set of information and then as they scroll down have it constantly cascade new content with this waterfall navigation technique? And looking at it that way, it's now granted you might have to dive further into XPages development in order to deliver that, because the tools that we have right now are specifically designed to address an individual need or a multi-purpose need. Look at the view panel. So the view panel can be ripped apart. I've done panel resources and no content view columns in a view panel with amazing success. And yes, I could have done the same thing with a repeat panel or a repeat control, but nonetheless, showing that you can take these further, these core controls and even the extension libraries control beyond what they were originally intended, but you do eventually hit a limit, and that's where custom controls come in. And if you're on your game enough and well versed enough, you start creating your own toolkit of custom controls and your own library controls to address that. But for me, because I'm not a Java developer, because I'm not, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be honest with you, because I tend to look at it from a usability and user experience and trying to drive it from there, trying to marry business logic with business logic and application logic with how people normally work with usability, and that's really where I go with my stuff. And I'm almost the foil to Paul, and as I've reported to Paul in the past, he'll be the first to tell you, my button might not always work, but damn it, it'll be pretty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, that's something. It's interesting because I think that's a hurdle that a lot of people migrating into XPages, especially from traditional Domino development or Notes client development, it's a bit of a challenge when you consider that. Okay, you're going to do a Notes application. Well, pretty much the UI is given to you. I mean, you don't really have a lot of opportunities there to get real creative. And the same thing goes for Domino apps. Now, you could get insanely creative, but when you move out of standard Domino Notes kind of development into XPage world, you realize that you not only have a lot more opportunities and tools at your disposal to create much more compelling and easy to use interfaces and applications, but you're also sort of bequeathed with the responsibility to start studying that. And I find it interesting that you get your inspiration through games. I wouldn't call it inspiration that I get from Facebook, but I do take a look at what Facebook's doing, what Google's doing, and I say, well, if this is what people are using, and they're comfortable with this, I don't know, this blocky looking format for stuff, then anything that I do will seem familiar to them, and it's incumbent upon all of us to pay attention to how these other applications work, because that's what people are using. And when they go to use your applications, the good news is XPages will do it. The bad news is you're probably going to have to do a lot of that for yourself, because XPages is not going to do that just magically. So I think becoming a student of UI, I mean, I'm sort of like everybody. I'm sort of a blunt instrument when it comes to development and UI design and those kinds of things, but I do try to pay attention to what happens, and that expands to everything from, the web applications you're using to the games you're using, or heck, I mean, the coffee pot. I mean, everything that you ever used was designed by somebody, and somebody had to have a meeting or a decision that said, we're going to put that button there. I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think everybody, especially new XPagers, have to. That's sort of a hard thing to do. They figure, well, what now? There's so many different things I could do. What do I do? Well, you got to just look around and see what other applications look like.
Well, it's the idea of standing on the shoulders of giants, really. I mean, I don't have an R&D budget, nor can I justify on a customer project spending all this time looking into this. But when I meet with a customer to discuss, I'm not getting into this, but modernization of a traditional Lotus Notes client application, I'm able to throw ideas at them that they themselves might not have considered, mostly because they're in this world of, well, there's navigation on the left-hand side, and you've got all the content on this side, and that's the world that we're stuck in, and I want my users to be able to quickly ramp up to this. But if you start talking to them and say, well, your users probably use Facebook, YouTube, more than they use this IT requisitions database that you've got to, that someone comes in and requests a new mouse pad every 3 years. If you break that user interface and adopt something that they're familiar with, then you're going to get more. You're going to breed more familiarity. Now, if there's corporate branding, and this is why this is a discussion for another hangout, but if there's corporate branding, if there's this mandate that comes down, and I've seen it from. I've done customer projects where they've said, yeah, go nuts, wow me, to this is the exact color of teal that we're going to use across the header banner, and it's got to be exactly this, and the different hex and the RGB color codes for exactly what I need. And hey, I like it when it's well documented like that, but that rigidity, you can lose a lot of application, I'll say application nomenclature and common gestures, like the ability to comment in line. If I've got to click on a topic, go into it to read it, and then comment on it, well, that's sort of breaking the paradigm that's been set with pretty much any collaborative platform out there. So while you had to do that because of the limitations of the Lotus Notes client platform over the years, and that sort of became a standard due to limitations, now there is no such limitation. But again, that gets way off into another topic for another time. We could probably spend 4 hours talking about that one.
Yeah, I think that the main point there is that in the world of iPhones and these Android devices and Apple, design is being more predominant than it used to be in the 90s. So user expectations are greater than they've ever been because they have these Keurig coffee makers and they have iPhones and they have Bluetooth into their car and they have pretty websites now that don't have the blink tag and stuff like that. So it's just user expectations. Like Scott Good, who's a longtime community member, he used to give this session, which was one of the best sessions I've ever seen at Lotus for any of the lugs, and it was entitled "You Can't Fix Ugly." So you can have the best code, the best functions, the best back end tricks and techniques in there, but if it's ugly and the user doesn't want to use it, it doesn't matter. So I believe he used the example of Charlize Theron, who's a very attractive actress, but she wasn't attractive in the movie Monsters, where I didn't see it because it's not my kind of movie or so, but she's pretty ugly in that movie. And it's the same girl, it's just a user interface, as he said. So the expectation the user has today is to have a nice interface, have it clean, have things readable, because that's what everything else is, and that's what you're competing with. So you don't need to go for bells and whistles necessarily, and there's nothing wrong to have a standardization in corporate apps or so, but it's got to be pretty, and you've got to be aware as a developer that you're competing for kudos against Google Hangouts and YouTube and the Yahoo pages and stuff like that are done by professional teams. So steal what you can. Steal Twitter Bootstrap and use that. Steal things from jQuery. You've got to look into these things to get some of these functionalities that you want, like tooltips and things that pop it on your screen automatically and things like that.
Very good point. Very good point. All good points all around. We're getting to the top of the hour, so I want to give time for any closing ideas, any closing statements for you to pitch whatever it is you guys want to pitch, and we'll start off with Dave.
Well, I would just say if you're watching this and you're an advanced or intermediate XPage person, blog. Share what you've learned. It doesn't matter how simple it is. Every now and then, every couple years in the notes world, someone makes a blog post of, you can do an @formula test inside the subject of an email. And every couple years I forget that, and then someone posts it again, and then I remember it, and then I'm going to forget it again until someone posts it again. So just because it's been done before doesn't mean it can't be done again. And if you're new, there are resources. We've got the XPages forum. We've got Stack Overflow now. We've got my stuff. We've got the TLCC stuff. We've got Matt's stuff. We've got all these wikis out there, and now the books. So there is information out there.
Well said. Paul?
Yeah, I think David really covered the top 10 resources for new developers that are out there. One thing that I'll just add to it is that we've had a lot of people that we've talked to at Lugs and stuff, and they're like, well, I'm waiting to do XPages when I have a project to apply it to, and really my recommendation is don't wait. Find something, no matter what it is. If you have to create something from scratch, Domino Designer is free. You can download it into your existing environment at home. But take that spare time that you have, and really just take a slow approach to it. You don't have to wait for your company to do XPages. You can actually download the designer for free, and you can start developing XPages and playing with XPages, and that's going to lead you into the other things that you're going to want to learn, which is, learning more about XML, CSS, JSON, client and server-side JavaScript, Java, and then that's just going to allow you to, again, to keep that stuff. So when and if your company does decide to go to XPages, then you're already a step ahead.
My advice to everybody is, if you don't already have an account at StackOverflow.com, you should go there, register, and just set up like an email subscription or set up an RSS feed to watch the XPages questions. A lot of the stuff that comes across there is a good mix of sort of people that are brand new to the platform questions, plus some significantly more advanced questions. And so once you start to get a feel for that, it makes it a little easier to get back in. I really can't add anything else other than, do what David said and do what Paul said. Those are all good things of a piece of advice.
Now, and you guys are definitely the experts, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. From NotesIn9 to the stuff that you guys do around the world, you guys are the go-to guys for anything education. When I think about training and education, I think of you guys as my go-to. So I wanted to thank Dave, Paul, and Russ for joining me today, for joining us, for giving up
no problem.
And what I gave you guys 10 hours notice on this. And
I was eating at Olive Garden when I got the invite.
I was watching my Eagles lose.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't happy.
They lost? I didn't check the score.
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. Yeah, they lost.
Okay. Okay. They were winning at one point. When I went to bed, they were winning.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
So they were fine on my shift. That's all I'm saying.
It was me. It was me watching them that tanked them.
Yes.
What's the old adage? A broken clock is right twice a day.
That's right.
I think that's they backed into the end zone inadvertently, and there you go. Yeah. But I want to thank everyone everyone on our panel. I want to thank everyone who tuned in, all 11 viewers, and we were up to 12 at one point, but that might have been the panel actually checking the live feed themselves. Well, still, hey, I'll take the numbers. I'll take what I can get. We're going to have more of these, so if you liked it, let us know. Like and subscribe this video, share it out there. If you have topic suggestions, please let me know. If you want to be on the panel and actually talk and shut me up, by all means, please let me know. Love to have you on, and we'll be talking from everything from modernization to gamification to, I don't know, stopping procrastination and all the other nations that we can think of.
Perfect.
Again, thank you all. This is Chris Toohey, DominoGuru.com. Take care.
Bye.
And that's the Hangout. I guess it's more of a Hangout than a demo. If you have any questions, here's my information, and I thank you for your time.